for the family portrait. Move it!
Okay, here we go. This one's gonna be the Simpsons at our finest. Smile, look cheerful. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Why, you little...
The Simpsons, next Sunday.
What you just saw there was a promo for The Simpsons that dates back to 1989. Now, this wasn't the first time people saw The Simpsons, because during the Tracy Ullman show, they were a reoccurring segment. Here's a clip.
Look at Maggie. What a little bundle of joy. You can tell what it's thinking by its body language.
Although The Simpsons were popular on the Tracy Ullman show, they were way more popular once they got their own show. So, The Simpsons is pretty popular, as you could tell. I mean, even post-Bart Mania, it's still somehow kicking strong at 36 seasons? Jeez. Although this is purely impressive based off of the numbers and stats, seriously, it has the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest-running TV show of all time. But sadly, all good things must come to an end. Although The Simpsons is still getting new episodes, obviously, I don't think they really hold a candle to the old ones. Stuff like the writing and the humor are definitely not as good as they once were. Even stuff like the animation, in my opinion, has kind of gone downhill a bit. While yes, it's definitely more refined than it once was. In my opinion, part of the old charm of The Simpsons was its, weird animation. Like, it felt more alive when it was poorly animated than it does now that it looks better. Now, in no way, shape, or form do I think The Simpsons is terrible now. Like, it ain't Family Guy, but you still have to admit,
the damn thing isn't funny anymore.
Now, granted, there are a few times where it looks like The Simpsons is gonna get good again, but those were short-lived. But then that begs the question, why do people still watch it? And today, we will be answering that very question, and why The Simpsons is unable to die. Okay, for this segment, I was originally going to tell you how The Simpsons came into being, but you already know it came from a Tracy Ullman show, so let's talk about how the state of television at the time was before The Simpsons came out. So during the 80s, a lot of shows on TV were, very positive and optimistic. They portrayed perfect families and a perfect America. Now, granted, there's nothing wrong with, wholesome sitcoms, but people are kind of getting sick of it by the time of the late 80s. The same thing was true for cartoons around the time. Those were more geared towards children, and, adults like cartoons too. Now, granted, there were some adult cartoons around the time, but those were pretty niche during the 80s. So yeah, both people who liked sitcoms and cartoons wanted something that was a bit more edgy around the time of the late 80s. And both of them got what they wanted in the end, when a show came out known as The Simpsons. Now, granted, most people consider The Simpsons to be pretty plain compared to most adult animation, but at the time, it was pretty edgy. There was drinking, there was smoking, there was sex, there was depression, there was suicide, there was affairs, there was the LGBTQ. There was all sorts of other taboo stuff that TV at the time would purposely avoid. But they didn't care. They tackled it. And it wasn't just for the humor alone. At times it was kind of emotional. And, I feel like that's what kind of gave The Simpsons its heart in its early years. It's that, it could be funny, but it can also be heartfelt at times, which is something that I feel like it sorely lacks today. Now, before we talk about post-Golden Age Simpsons, why don't we talk about the Golden Age itself? Now, many people debate as to when the Golden Age of Simpsons ended. Some say it was Season 7, some say it was Season 9, and some say it was Season 10. But for the sake of this video, let's just say it was Season 9. Because, there's a certain episode that needs to be discussed. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for right now, let's talk about what made Seasons 1 through 9 special. Say what you want about the animation or the amazing voice cast. Those were what made The Simpsons special. While yes, those were what made The Simpsons good, the writing, however, is what made The Simpsons great. Some writers include the likes of Matt Groening, aka the creator of The Simpsons, James L. Brooks, Sam Simon, who rest in peace, Al Jean, Mike Reese, David Markin, Bob Oakley, Josh Weinstein, oh no! Mike Sully, and Matt Selman. All of them worked on The Simpsons. Now, granted, some still work on The Simpsons to this day, but a majority of them no longer work there. Let's take Conan O'Brien for an example. He used to work on The Simpsons. Now he has his own talk show. Jeez, that's a glow-up if I've ever seen one. But let's get back on track, shall we? Now, a lot of the writers started leaving The Simpsons after Season 7, which is part of the reason why people debate whether or not The Simpsons' golden age ended after Season 7, or a certain episode in Season 9, which we'll get to. All I'm going to say is, The Simpsons had to replace these writers with basically lesser versions of them. What I mean by this is, let's take politics for an example. So, The Simpsons is a very left-leaning show when it comes to politics. Even President Bush, no, not the one who committed 9/11, even President Bush had a bone to pick with The Simpsons. He would go out of his way to say, quote, "We need a nation closer to the Waltons than The Simpsons." This was a real quote, by the way. And this would lead to The Simpsons making an episode making fun of George W. Bush, but we're getting off track. The point I'm trying to make is, The Simpsons could be political, yes. But they try to make fun of both sides of the aisle, which is something that the newer Simpsons episodes lack. It's not even just The Simpsons, it's pretty much everything coming out these days. But let's get back on track. So, after a majority of the writers from Season 7 left, so did the quality for The Simpsons. Now, it wasn't too bad. I mean, Season 8 was fine. And so was the first episode of Season 9. But then there was the second episode of Season 9. This episode was so bad that it ended up killing the golden age of The Simpsons and leading to the mediocrity that would follow. So, yeah. Let's talk about probably one of the worst episodes of The Simpsons ever. The Principal and the Pauper. Okay, here we go. So one bad episode doesn't usually kill a show. I mean, South Park had a couple, and it's still a pretty good show. You see, with this Simpsons episode, it is
the worst episode ever.
Or at least at the time. But anyways, why don't I give you a brief plot synopsis of this episode so you could see why people hated it at the time. So this episode revolves around Seymour Skinner, aka Principal Skinner, a fan-favorite Simpsons character, being taken to the school he works at by his mother in order to receive a reward for his 20 years of service there. Well, that sounds pretty normal enough. I mean, it doesn't sound that bad. But guess what? There's more. Just as Seymour was about to give a speech about how grateful he was to receive this, suddenly, out of nowhere, someone appears. Someone who claims to be the real Seymour Skinner. It's here where Seymour Skinner reveals that he's not actually Seymour Skinner, and that the guy who claiming to be Seymour Skinner is actually the real Seymour Skinner. It's here where Seymour Skinner reveals that he's not the goody two-shoes man who he portrays himself as, but instead a petty criminal who is getting arrested, but guess what? He gets taken to Vietnam instead in order to avoid jail time. After being exposed for identity fraud, Seymour Skinner, or as we should call him now,
Armin Tamzarian.
After giving the real Seymour Skinner his life back, Armin Tamzarian decides to go back to his life of crime and drives away on his motorcycle. So, yeah, that in and of itself was kind of irritating because, well, as I said, Skinner was a fan-favorite character at the time. But guess what? All of this was for nothing. Because everyone in Springfield realizes they like the fake Skinner more than the real Skinner. So they decide to go get the fake Skinner back, and, well, after getting the fake Seymour Skinner back, they proceed to tie up the real Seymour Skinner, put him on a train, and kick him out of town. And this is never brought up again, because I kid you not, in the show, bringing up this episode is punishable by torture, making this whole episode practically pointless. So, yeah, as you can see, for the time, this was considered the worst episode of The Simpsons, by far. It was so controversial that even Matt Groening hated it. In fact, even the voice actor for Seymour Skinner, aka Harry Sheener, said this is what killed the Golden Age. It was also the last episode that the writer Ken Keeler worked on, which I don't know if this means he was fired or he quit, but it was the last episode, so yeah, it was pretty bad. So, yeah. This is definitely one of the worst episodes of The Simpsons. Although nowadays this isn't considered the worst Simpsons episode, I'd say Lisa Goes Gaga is worse than this episode. Plus, in recent years, people have sort of warmed up to this episode a bit. In fact, some people go out of their way to defend Principal and the Pauper. But you still can't deny, this is basically the episode where the Simpsons jumped the shark. Now, it's no secret that The Simpsons nowadays isn't as good as it used to be during the Golden Age. But it's not like Family Guy in that it's god-awful. Seriously, why? Oh no. You see, The Simpsons is a different kind of disappointment, because it is mediocre. Like, if you were to look at The Simpsons ratings post-Golden Age, you would see that a majority of it is mediocre. So, yeah, that's kind of disappointing. But you know what's even more sad? They don't even try anymore, man. Like, they've repeated the same episodes over and over again, plot beat to plot beat, because they can't think of anything new. Now, granted, The Simpsons isn't the only show that repeats its episodes. I mean, South Park did it too. But that was more for comedic effect. The Simpsons is doing it because they can't think of anything to do with The Simpsons anymore. The only time The Simpsons writers really go all out for an episode anymore is when it's a Treehouse of Horror episode. But other than that, they haven't really been doing anything to make The Simpsons interesting. And it has been 27 years since that episode released, and other shows have kind of taken over the zeitgeist. So, yeah, the reign of The Simpsons is practically over. But then that begs the question, why is The Simpsons still getting new episodes? Why can't The Simpsons die? I asked this question at the beginning of the video, and now I'm prepared to answer it. They are too big to fail. Yes, they are too big to fail. Let me explain. You ever wondered how Fox Television became the powerhouse that it is today? Well, it's because of The Simpsons. Now granted, there were other shows on Fox at the time that were popular, but none of them were going to be as popular as The Simpsons. Why? Why? It's because, well, it's The Simpsons. People will continue to watch The Simpsons, even if it is out of its golden age, for one fact and one fact only. People can't get enough of The Simpsons. Yes, you heard me right. We are the reason why The Simpsons cannot end. Because surprisingly, videos discussing the downfall of The Simpsons have kind of kept it afloat in the cultural zeitgeist in a way. I mean, you clicked on this video, it shows you have some interest into what happened to The Simpsons. That's the thing. The Simpsons doesn't need to be good in order for it to continue getting new episodes. Because if that were the case, the show would have ended, well, years ago. Because people online talk about it, it can never get an ending. In many ways, The Simpsons is a lot like SpongeBob. Because people online regularly get into discourse about it. It's never going to get out of our zeitgeist, even if it's out of its prime. Because even I've been talking about this whole video. Jeez. But unfortunately, because of how successful The Simpsons is, it kind of killed Fox in a way. Because think about it. When you have such a successful show as The Simpsons, well, do you need any other shows? In many ways, The Simpsons is like a crutch for Fox in the same way that SpongeBob is a crutch for Nickelodeon. Because these shows are so popular, these networks no longer need to try anymore, or better yet, make new shows. So yeah, that's why The Simpsons can't die, because it would mean Fox would have to step out of its comfort zone, and they don't want to do that. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. And since it's December 25th, or at least as this video is releasing, I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas. And, well, I hope you enjoyed the Simpsons video because it took a while to make, as you could tell. And, yeah, Merry Christmas, and remember, even if The Simpsons now sucks, at least the old episodes are still easy to revisit. So, yeah, have fun.
Shh.